Hello YouTube, I am back with my first video in a long time. Um, I just uploaded a bunch of videos from my Udemy course um, for iOS 7 programming topics from beginner to server interaction. Um, well, first of all, fair warning, this video will be unedited. I'm just going to record it and upload it. I'm just trying to get it out there quickly. So in this video, I'm going to go over the basics for auto layout. I'm sure many of you have tried Autolayout and you were disgusted by the results. It's hard, when you're first learning it, it's hard to use and it's frustrating and things never seem to stick where you want them to be. And in certain situations, Autolayout really is hard. Like for example, in a table view where you need your cell rows to resize to fit the full width of a screen. Whether it be an iPhone 4 or 5 or an iPhone 6 Plus. This video is just going to be an intro. I'm going to show you the basics of constraints and aligning things or sticking things against an edge of the screen. So I'm just going to use a bunch of, I guess a bunch of buttons, maybe some labels. I don't have anything really planned. I'm just going to kind of wing this one. But alright, so let's get started. I'm going to open up Xcode, obviously. New project. I'm just going to go with single view. There's going to be zero programming in this video. It's going to be strictly GUI based auto layout positioning. I'll name it auto layout. Who cares? And I'm going to go with iPhone for now. I'm not. You can use auto layout and something called size classes to use auto layout to make your interface adapt to the iPhone screen and the iPad screen. But I'm going to stick with iPhone in this video to keep it simple. Okay. All right. So let's go to main.storyboard. And now you can see here at the bottom, this is where you change the size classes. So any width, any height is kind of like the generic layout size. So it should adapt to. This should be kind of your base structure, and where you lay out your interface. And from here, since this is like the generic structure, you should use this as kind of like a guideline for how things should adapt for smaller screens and larger screens. Although I don't want to use size classes in this video, like I said. Size classes is for if you plan to make this resizable for iPhone and iPad. So in the identity inspector here, I'm just going to uncheck use size classes. All right, so here this looks like the iPhone 5 screen to me, 5S, whatever. Let's verify that. I mean, I know it is, but just to make sure. Okay, so it's under inferred, so if we change it to 4-inch, it'll be exactly the same. All right, so the goal here is to make it so that our auto layout constraints, excuse me, are defined such that the iOS can determine very, not even accurately, but definitely where things should be positioned as the screen size changes. So whether we have the 3.5-inch screen from 4 and 4S or the 5.5-inch screen for the iPhone 6 Plus, everything will be adapted and the constraints will work universally. All right, so let's start with a button. I'll put a button on the screen right here. Let's make it, let's give it, let's see, give it a background color. No, you can't with buttons. You know what? Forget the buttons. Bad choice. Let's go with labels. I want you guys to see the background color. We'll use labels instead of buttons. All right, so let's give it a background color. I'm missing something here. Oh, here we go. Background color of red. How about that? Okay. All right, so first of all, since this is in the top left corner of the screen, we can imagine that, oh, hold on a second, my cat. Be quiet. Okay, sorry. Anyway, so since it's in the top left corner of the screen, we can imagine that it'll probably stay there for all screen sizes. So let's verify that. Let's go with the 4S. Okay, it's in the top left. Now let's try with the 6 Plus. Alright, right, so great. So in this situation, it works just fine. But now, what if we want our label, or whatever, to resize its width as the screen width changes? So let's run this again on the iPhone 4S. Okay, looks good, and that's because we created the label for the 4/5 screen width. But now if we run it on the 6 Plus, oh boy, here we go. I hate when Xcode does this. Oh, okay, good. You can see that it doesn't fill the width of the screen. Now, in certain situations, maybe you might not want that, but in this situation, I do want that. I want this label to fill the width of the screen. Okay, so let's get started with our layout constraints for the first subview. All right, so first thing is, in this situation, I'm going to make it a little taller. We do not want the height of the label to change. We want it to stay as 45 pixels. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to lock the height of this. Okay, so down here we have two different two buttons here, different categories of auto layout constraints. Auto layout constraints. The one on the right here contains the option to lock width or height. We'll talk about these later. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a height constraint. So we're going to check off height, 45 pixels, add constraint. Okay. So now, auto layout knows we want this to always remain as 45 pixels tall. But now that we've added a constraint, it's guessing where this where you want this subview to be based on the only constraint we have, and it's assuming we want it here. Now the reason for that is because we haven't set anything pertaining to width, we haven't set anything pertaining to distance from the top of the screen, and we haven't set anything as far as distance from the left and the right side of the screen. So auto layout thinks that we want this label to appear in these dotted lines. Now it's got the height right. You can see that it's 45 pixels tall, but since that's the only constraint we added, that's the only constraint auto layout can go off of. So as it takes its best guess, this is where it guesses you want it to be. So we need to add other constraints to tell auto layout exactly how this is going to behave in any situation. Okay, so first things first, let's give this a set distance from the top of the screen. So if we go back to this this button here, I don't know the names for these buttons. I don't know if there is any. I'm sure there's some kind of category name, but I don't know them. We can click on this one on the right here. Uncheck constraint to margins. Always uncheck this unless you get really good with auto layout and you know what it means. I'm not going to explain it right now. I don't even know what it means in all situations. I didn't take the time to look it up because it's never been applicable for me personally. So I'm going to uncheck constraint to margins. And now you see, based on where we placed it originally, we have on the top 8 pixels, the side 16, and on the bottom 495. So this top here is 8 pixels from the top of the screen. So now, if we click on this little, I don't know what to call it, the icon that indicates that this is going to be from the top of the screen, and these ones are the left, this one's the bottom. If we click on this icon here, it fills in red. and we add the constraint. Now Autolayout knows we want this view to always be 8 pixels from the top of the screen. So that is a constant. So whether the... Hold on 1 second. Okay. Oh. Anyway, so with this constraint, Autolayout knows we want this subview, this label, to always be exactly 8 pixels from the top of the screen. So whether our screen is 50 pixels tall or 10,000 pixels tall, this will always attach itself to the top of the screen with 8 pixels in between. All right, so now Autolayout has readjusted where it thinks we want this label to be. So you can see from the dotted line here, if we were to move this, now it knows it's 8 pixels from the top of the screen, and it's 45 pixels tall, but that's all it knows. So now we have 2 more constraints to add. What we want to do is we want to tell Autolayout that we always want this label to be 16 pixels from the left of the screen and 16 pixels from the right of the screen. So to do this, we're going to add trailing and leading spaces. So same thing with this second Autolayout button here. It gave me a HUD. I think it said pin. All right, so we'll call this the pin category. This one is the align category. Okay, there we go. So now I know pin and align. So again, the pin category of Autolayout constraints. Again, uncheck constraint to margins. And we're going to add the left and the right here. And you see again 16, 16. It's inferring 16 from the fact that right now this view as we see it actually is 16 pixels from either side of the screen. That's where we placed it originally. All right, so add these 2 constraints and boom, you can now see that on all sides we have blue constraint indicators. And what this means is Autolayout now knows in any situation for any screen size or any orientation exactly where to place this label. So let's run it again. Let's run it on the 4S screen. Good, as expected. And now the 6 Plus. Awesome, same thing. So as the screen width and height adjusts, Autolayout adjusts this label for us. All right, so now let's do the exact same thing, but we'll do it with the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to copy this label, paste it, I'll put it down here, and we'll do the same thing. So let's do it all in one go. Uncheck constraint to margins. So this time we want it to attach itself to the bottom of the screen. So we're going to open up the pin category of constraints, uncheck constraint to margins. So now we're going to choose this bottom constraint indicator. So it'll be 20 pixels from the bottom of the screen at all times. Lock the height, because again we want it to be 45 pixels, and attach it, give it a leading space of 16 pixels and a trailing space of 16 pixels. And now you can see we have, hold on, this needs to be equals. No. It does that sometimes. It set the height to be equal to or greater than 45 pixels, but that's not what I want. Oh, I see. Because I copied and pasted it. It copied over the height constraint. I forgot that Autolayout does that. I apologize. All right, so just because that might have been confusing, I'm gonna delete the constraints and do that one more time. All right, so back to the pin category. Height 45 pixels, 16 pixels from the left, 16 pixels from the right, and 20 pixels from the bottom. Add 4 constraints, and there we go. As you can see again, the blue constraint indicators, Autolayout knows where to place this in any situation. I'm going to change the background color to green just for contrast. And let's run it again on the 4S. Awesome. So you can see that even though in Xcode we were using the 5 or 5S screen, which is taller than the 4S screen, as the screen size was, as the height was minimized to mimic the 4 screen, the label came up with it and remains 20 pixels from the bottom of the screen. And let's do the same thing with the 6 Plus. Perfect. All right, I'm going to show you one more thing. Let's say we have a subview that we want to remain exactly 30 pixels beneath this label here. So let's just add another label. Give it a background. Let's go with blue this time. Okay, so first let's lock the height. This time we got 52 pixels, whatever, doesn't matter. Okay. And now let's give it, so what we're going to do here is, as opposed to sticking it some, X pixels from the top of the screen, we're going to stick it X pixels from the, beneath this red label. 1 second, sorry. All right. Again, okay, so yeah, like I said, so in this instance, instead of sticking the blue label from the X pixels from the top of the screen, we're going to stick it X pixels beneath the red label. Now, obviously, those mean exactly the same thing. There's no difference there, but just to show you, you can do vertical spacing from things other than the screen, from the screen top and bottom. You can do it to other subviews. So we're going to right-click and drag this to the label and give it a vertical spacing. And so if we go to our constraint here, we gave it a spacing of 38. We can change that from the constraint. Sorry, let me show you that again. So here is with the ruler icon, which usually is the sizing and frame inspector. Now as of auto layout, with auto layout, it shows the constraints in that tab as well. So here are the two constraints we've added. I can change the distance to 30 pixels, and then down here I can go to update frame, and it'll adjust it to match the constraints we have. But let's add the other constraints before we do that. And alright, so the final constraints are the leading and trailing spaces from the screen. And now I'm going to do update frame again. And there we go. So again, same thing. iPhone 4S. Okay, and then 6 Plus. Awesome. All right, I'm gonna try one more thing that I don't have much experience with, but I'm gonna give it a shot anyway. I'm gonna delete this label first of all. What I'm gonna try to do here is use aspect ratios, so that let's say for instance that you always want this top label to fill 70% of the screen, and you always want this bottom label to fill 30% of the screen, vertically speaking. So, all right, so I'm gonna give that a shot. I'm winging this. This is no longer. This is no longer. It was never scripted, but this I had no plans of doing this prior to making the video. But since we got through everything else pretty quickly, I want to show you this because this is also obviously very useful. All right, so I assume that I need to delete the height constraint. Okay, I'm going to go with aspect ratio. I'm going to add the constraint. And let's try the same thing for this. Delete the height, aspect ratio. Okay, let's see if it works. Start with the 4S. It looks like that may have worked. Wow, that did work. Okay, so apparently, if you size your views with the ratio that you like, that you want to maintain, and then you just give them, as opposed to locking the height as a constant, you just check off aspect ratio. I guess first you have to give it the distance from the top of the screen. So you have to give it the vertical constraints or the spacing constraints from the edges. But then I guess once you do that, just resize it to your liking, and just go down to the pin tab, check off aspect ratio, and Xcode infers based on the size that it is the aspect ratio. All right, so I guess I'm going to wrap it up with that. I hope that you found this interesting and helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to post comments. And thanks for watching.